We are live from Radio Row here in the Pass Interference Podcast, part of the Totally Tubular CLNS Media Network. It is Monday, February 2nd. We are 6 days from the Super Bowl. No Mike Giardi in sight. I don't know what could be better, aside from the man in our sights, Bill Barnwell of ESPN, coming to hang out in the pod for the second time. You, Bill, I don't know if you remember this. The first time you came on was before the last Patriots-Seahawks game, played week 2 of last year's regular season, and you and I were going back and forth about how good Keon White looks, and oh my God, what could Geno Smith do at quarterback? My, how times have changed.
I mean, Geno Smith in September, when the Patriots are involved, apparently a good quarterback. I don't know. Obviously, what a crazy turn of events. We talked during the offseason, and we were talking about what the dream offseason for the Patriots would look like, and I mean, they went above and beyond that. So, I mean, I think even the most optimistic of Patriots fans could not have imagined that we would be sitting here in February in San Francisco at the Super Bowl. But it has been a really fascinating and fun season, and I think a really fascinating and fun game ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, the last time I was on here, we had Dan Pizzuta, your pal and mine, talking, basic standard, setting the table stuff, best and worst matchups for the Patriots. You and I are going to have dessert now, and we're going to get ahead of the main meals that I will have later in the week. Giardi will be on there. People walking around. Kendrick Bourne might make another appearance here on the show. But I want to have a draft here, and that kind of goes back to your Grantland days. And we're going to pick like something fun, sleeper MVP candidates, meaning the top 6 players by an unnamed sports book are off the table. Quarterbacks, receivers, running backs, not to be considered. If someone breaks open Super Bowl 60 that you don't expect, who is it? Bill and I will go back and forth and take our picks. But first, I wanted to just toss you a softball here. You look at this game, you could take this whatever direction you want. The matchup, as we see it, Seahawks are favored by 3.5, 4, wherever, depends on where you look. What's just your initial big picture thought about how these teams line up?
It's a good question. And I think it really comes down to sort of like how much you trust what you've seen in recent weeks, right? I mean, with Sam Darnold, #1 quarterback in football by QBR, up to that first Rams game, 28th afterwards, and then has the game of his life against the Rams in the NFC Championship game. Excellent as a drop-back passer, didn't take negative plays. I find that hard to really trust. I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to have some explosive plays, but I do think that we're not going to get that Sam Darnold in the Super Bowl. But then you flip it, of course, Patriots defense, middle of the pack by advanced metrics, did play a very easy slate of opposing quarterbacks. And then they've been the 2000 Ravens in the postseason, allowing fewer than 1 point per possession. And again, I think the truth is probably somewhere in between. They were the worst red zone defense in football during the regular season. I don't think they're going to be that bad here in a 1-game sample. But they're going to play the healthiest team they've played on offense all year. I know Zach Charbonnet's hurt, but this is otherwise a very healthy Seahawks unit. And so I really think we're going to see kind of a disjointed game. I think we're going to see a bit of a sloppy game. And I think it really comes down to the thing these two teams did really well during the regular season, and that's the explosives. Seahawks had the best explosive play differential of any team in football. I think the 9th best going back to 2000. Patriots were, I believe, 4th, although they were #1 on offense. Seahawks #1 at stopping explosives on defense. And so I think this is going to be a game where it's not going to be a shootout because they're not going to hit those explosives often enough to make it work. But I do think it's going to come down to, hey, who gets that 60-yard touchdown when a guy falls down? Who gets the 45-yard run when someone's in the wrong gap? Who gets that long punt or kick return, which we know both these teams have the ability to spring big returns. And so it does feel like kind of a game where we're going to see a few really impressive highlights and then maybe a little bit of slop in between those highlights.
Look at you, veteran podcaster, teeing me up for a transition, mentioning just special teams a little on the side. Yep. Sprinkled a little return suggestion in there, some foreshadowing. I like how you put that, though, because, look, for anyone who's followed the Patriots through the whole regular season, which I think is a lot of people who have listened and or watched to this podcast, you look at this team in the playoffs and you go, okay, you're really proud of them. But you know this is not the Drake May that you saw end the season against the Dolphins and tear them up. This is not the defense that you saw in that game struggle, as people forget, in the first quarter, which is what they were wont to do. Now dominate, as you said, which is a good way of me bringing up. I had mentioned they had allowed 1 touchdown in each of their 3 games. And this is the last commenter. So for folks who need to leave a rating or review, you can remind me of that because it helps us get better here. And that the Patriots didn't allow a touchdown in their first playoff game against the Chargers. When we first went, oh, what's this? And that was the first time I asked myself, is this sustainable? Like, is this replicable for the defense? And that gets to your point of, okay, do you trust what you saw? okay, well, why or why not? I think this is a result or a function of some change that will continue into the Super Bowl. For example, the defense. Their blitz rate has gone way up, and I think that has been, frankly, overdue for that defense. Drake May, is it nerves? Is it pressure? Is it the shoulder? Is that sustainable? For the Seahawks, though, for people who listen to this podcast and aren't as familiar with them, is that just turnover variance for Darnold, or what is sustainable, do you think, about the changes for that team versus what might not continue as we see it on Sunday?
They've been a little more efficient running the football, not so much in the championship game, but a little more efficient in the second half. And so that's kind of been something to mitigate some of the drop-off in Darnold's play. I think they're going to get Rashid Shaheed a little more involved. Did have a big catch early on in that game, and that's just another explosive playmaker for them. They've got Elijah Arroyo back. That lets them operate out of 12 a little more comfortably. And I mean, they are terrifying out of 12 personnel this year. The numbers are absolutely scary. They are averaging, Sam Darnold against base defenses, playing out of 12 personnel, averaging 13.5 yards per pass attempt on 82 plays so far this regular season, a 16.2% explosive play rate out of 12. And so all that stuff comes into play. But I do think turnover variance is the biggest thing. And we know that can decide a game. Like, you might just have a game with some ugly fumble luck. You might have, a strip sack that could be, the difference between one strip sack and 0 strip sacks is enormous, but it's just one pass rush that wins, or one false step by a quarterback, and that could decide an entire game. And I'll also flip it, though, and true for both teams. Like, I've covered Super Bowl and Super Bowl runs where I was heading into the Super Bowl thinking, well, Eli Manning has been hot during the postseason, but he's just not that good. He's not going to do it in the Super Bowl. Joe Flacco, okay. He's been really great during the postseason. He's not going to be that guy in the Super Bowl. Sometimes they are that guy. Nick Foles, great example. Sometimes they are that guy in the Super Bowl still. And, there's things that we can't account for. Yes, I'm the nerd. Yes, I want to regress stuff to the mean. Yes, I want to account for variance. But sometimes guys get hot. Sometimes players get hot. Sometimes teams get hot. And this Patriots defense, like you said, we could be sitting here after the game saying, well, shouldn't have expected that they would be so great maybe, but they did blitz more. They played more man. They were more effective on man coverage than they had been in the past. Milton Williams had a great game against the weak spot in the interior of the Seahawks offensive line. All those things are entirely plausible. And so it does feel like there's so many different ways this game can go. We could have a really sloppy 9-turnover game, and that could be just who gets a couple short fields, like the Texans-Patriots game. It could be so many different ways this game plays out. And I think that makes it such a fun game to sit here and preview, because as I was making this list of potential candidates, there were so many different players. I was like, okay, I can see a world where this guy is the difference maker in this game and is a plausible MVP pick.
Well, let's get right to it. So I will applaud you for continuing to speak after what you called a great example, meaning all of the quarterbacks that have skewered the Patriots in the playoffs. Because I think, had I not reminded everyone of that you said that a couple of minutes ago, maybe they would have forgotten. But we can't let that go here in the Pass Interference podcast. You are correct in that. But look, Sam Darnold does fall under that same category, right? Of quarterbacks who go, he's not going to win this game, but there's a ceiling enough as one of the best deep ball passers, one of the best intermediate passers in football this season, where he could do just that. Obviously, everyone listening, cross your fingers, doesn't happen. But let's go to the fun part of this. So here's the deal. Okay. The top 6 candidates right now for MVP, according to Unnamed Sportsbook, are not included in this draft. Well, Bill and I will take turns picking a player, or if you want to go a whole position group, no one's going to pick Garrett Bradbury for MVP. But you could go Patriots offensive line, and you want to go, wherever it might be. We will take turns. Who likely wins MVP in a pool of unlikely candidates? Those excluded: Drake May, Sam Darnold, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Ken Walker, Ramondre Stevenson, and Stephon Diggs. Everyone else is fair game. And because I am a benevolent host, though, I will let you have the first overall pick in the Super Bowl 60 sleeper MVP candidate draft.
Wow. I'm a big trade down guy. I'm open to we're accepting offers. If someone
pandering to Patriots fans now, trade down. Yes.
Down the pick. Okay, I'm going to go with Marcus Jones, the guy who I brought up, alluding to special teams impact. And
cool.
When I was doing these, I was thinking, okay, what has to happen for this guy to be a plausible MVP pick? And this, I think, for Marcus Jones, is entirely possible. Obviously, excellent on returns, and it would take a return touchdown to even have this conversation. But if we get a low-scoring game decided by special teams, where we do get a return touchdown for the Patriots, and we get maybe an interception or two from Darnold in the slot. He's thrown some picks to slot corners, thrown some picks over the middle of the field. He can be a little late to see coverages when they're a little disguised. His ball placement can be immaculate. It can also be erratic. And so I see a lot of situations where the ball could be up for grabs in the middle of the field, where Marcus Jones is likely going to be. I just feel like to win from that without being in that top 6, you need a path to 2 splash plays. And to me, Marcus Jones has as clear a path to a couple of splash plays as any non-playmaker, running back, wide receiver, tight end in football.
I like it. I also think you hit on a point where, Patriots fans haven't started to think about, okay, how would Seattle attack our now, just impenetrable defense, our turnover machine? Marcus Jones is the answer. They're going to try to get Jackson Smith and Jigba in the slot, aligned against Marcus Jones, who has had, we talked about high variance on your pod, an hour ago. And Marcus Jones is an epitome of that because, look, he's going to have his picks. He'll have a return touchdown, but he's giving up a lot of yards in man-to-man coverage. Mm-hmm. And the upside of that is, okay, you keep picking on the 5'8" dude. There he goes back the other way with a pick 6, or, as you said, a punt return touchdown. So there will be opportunity there. And Sam Darnold also, as you said, for a guy who has thrown a lot deep and intermediate, where often that's the space where quarterbacks get fooled, a lot of his interceptions are within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. So, again, that's not just he's going to get opportunity. It's where sometimes Sam Darnold's not been his best. Marcus was third on my board, plus 10,000. Can you convert that for us, by the way, the non-gambling folks? What is that, like 100 to 1, 1,000 to 1?
Plus 10,000, I think is that 100 to 1? I think it's 100 to 1. I could be wrong, though.
Okay. Very good. Well, you lived in Vegas. I just assumed you picked something while you were
I did, but it was, number one, I don't live in Vegas anymore, which may explain why I can't do the odds in my head. That was also a very long time ago. I'll look it up. That is 100 to 1.
Okay, cool. You had it. All right. I'm going to take a Seahawks player with my pick here, number 2 overall. And it's for a lot of the same reasons you just outlined, special teams. Rashid Shaheed, who this might be cheating, but he's the highest player on the board by virtue of he has the 7th highest odds and we cut off at the top 6, plus 4,500. Look, the Patriots are going to devote extra attention to JSN. If Sam Darnold does take a shot, it's going to be at the dude who has the speed that Rashid Shaheed does. Yep. And he only has 15 catches, 188 yards, no touchdowns yet for Seattle. But the Patriots have a middling pass defense against deep passes. So it's not just the matchup and them diverting resources elsewhere. It's not just the player and his speed, but structurally, they'll kind of play with fire enough, whether it's blitzing or man coverage, that you go, okay, they'll throw one to Shaheed. The other part about this is the special teams piece, where he's returning kicks and punts for them. The Patriots, who have had up and down special team season, bottom 10 by DVOA on kickoffs, bottom 10 when punting. And Bryce Behringer, I think, will be better than he was in Denver, where some Patriots fans wanted to leave him for good and, give him firewood and, some food and supplies for a week or two.
That was nice.
But I just think that's a guy who, again, the environment becomes low-scoring game or a breakout play. It doesn't have to be Malcolm Smith with the pick in that Seahawks Super Bowl win. But Rashid Shaheed is the matchup problem for the Patriots. I think that's a guy I'm wary of if there's a surprise main character here in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, someone who came to mind for me for sure. And I think there's a really interesting question here. And I don't know if you have strong feelings about this. I talked about this a little bit on my podcast with Charles McDonald. I'm sort of wondering, are we going to get the old Belichick one double defense on Jackson Smith and Jigba? Because remember, famously, during a lot of those late era Patriots Super Bowls, they would take their second best cornerback and a safety and bracket the other team's top receiver. And they would take their best cornerback, put him on the number 2 guy, and then play a ton of man, trust that was going to work. Christian Gonzalez is a great player, but we just saw him last week in zone coverage get run by for a big play by a speedy Broncos receiver. If he's matched up against Rashid Shaheed throughout this game, if Cooper Kupp's out on the field, if they're playing 11 and he's outside, I don't know that you put him on Kupp versus Shaheed. I think you'd rather, with Kupp giving not as much of a deep threat, I think you'd rather maybe put him on Shaheed. But I just think there's a really fascinating scenario where Shaheed gets a lot of one-on-one opportunities against man coverage and maybe he runs away from it for a long score.
Yeah, this is an interesting conversation because I think when you're talking about the double, it wouldn't even have to be Carlton Davis, but if it was, because they'll pull JSN into the slot, I think a fair amount. And then you're looking at, okay, this is away from Rashid Shaheed, but let's indulge this part of the conversation because I think it's really important to the game as a whole. They'll put him in stacks. They will put him, obviously, in motions. What are the Patriots' rules with man coverage when they do play man? Are they going to bump assignments, or are they going to have him shadow? Because you don't want Seattle to be able to dictate matchups the entire time, but you better have both pitches kind of in your arsenal so you don't get to be predictable. And the other part about Gonzalez, for people who want him to shadow JSN, he's not as good of a run defender as Carlton Davis or Marcus Jones. So that's another case for, all right, we'll keep Gonzalez on Rashid Shaheed because they've listened to the Pass Interference podcast. Zach Core, hello. Mike Vrabel, hello. But also, look, you don't have to worry about that in early downs when you know Seattle wants to pound the rock. So that's something else that they'll have to keep in mind when answering kind of a different question about how to handle Jackson Smith and Jigba. All right, the third pick is yours, my friend.
I'm going to go with DeMarcus Lawrence. And I'm always a little hesitant to pick defensive linemen just because I've seen dudes absolutely take over games and not win this award. Chris Jones, a couple times in the Super Bowl, has been the best player on the field, made game-changing plays and not won. I go back, sorry, Patriots fans, to the Giants Super Bowl victories where Justin Tuck had an incredible game. I want to say JPP. Was it JPP or Benny? I think it was JPP.
It's two strikes, Bill.
Fantastic game.
We're playing with fire,
I'm not getting the three. Those dudes had great games. They did not win MVP, and I felt like they could have won MVP. So it's really hard for a pass rusher to win Super Bowl MVP. But talked about this on my show. Will Campbell has had a very rough postseason. Hope he's going to be healthier here for the Super Bowl. But DeMarcus Lawrence is such a good run defender. He's awesome against the run. Might make a TFL or two. And then I think he's going to get the majority of the pass rush opportunities against Will Campbell. And so if Will Campbell's 1-on-1 against DeMarcus Lawrence, he has three forced fumbles this year. I think 2 in the same game, if I'm not mistaken. But if he can create a couple strip sacks on Drake May, which we've seen him be susceptible to here in the postseason, if those change the game, again, in a low-scoring game, I think DeMarcus Lawrence has the splash play ability to be a potential MVP candidate.
Yeah, and this isn't just about pressure, right? It's turnovers. Because once he gets to Drake May with the sack, it is those strip sacks that Drake May has been just a vending machine for, okay, you come hit me, you hit the right button, there goes the ball. And look, I think there's mitigating factors like better weather and the fact that the coaches have now told this to him for another 2 weeks. Hold on to the ball, give up on the play. Please, God, we're in the Super Bowl now. Just hang in there. But at some point, this is where I thought the season would always live for them, is outside of the pocket, where he can extend and create and score touchdowns. But also that's where the danger is of losing the ball as you bring your arm back to DeMarcus Lawrence, barreling down from behind you and knocking it out, and you don't see him. But you don't make the play unless you risk putting the ball there in the first place.
Right.
Anyone else in that D-line, by the way, since we're talking about Seattle, that would especially scare you? I mean, Leonard Williams is good and Byron Murphy's good, but in terms of just a matchup here for the Patriots.
Yeah, I would say Murphy comes to mind. Williams is really good, but I think Murphy's the more likely to be kind of the penetrating tackle, more likely to be the guy who I'm going to think about a former Patriots Super Bowl where they won. I can't get in trouble for this one. Grady Jarrett had a huge game against the Patriots a few years ago in the Super Bowl, kind of kickstarted his career. But that sort of game where it's okay, you have someone who's winning on twists, who's winning on stunts. You have Evan Warry, who's so good on those pick stunts where he's picking a guard, and you have Murphy coming through behind him. I could see a scenario where he's the guy who has that athleticism in front. He chases down May for a strip sack or two. I think it would be Murphy if it were not Lawrence. But, I mean, so many talented players on that line. Any of those guys could have a big game.
All right. I'm going to break the rules of this draft, though not in the original spirit of when I was texting with you about what would we do here today. And people will find out about how I'm going to break my own rules here in a second. Because first, as we are hanging out here at the Super Bowl, I need to remind everyone, if you are not here, the best way to enjoy the Super Bowl is to hang out, be at home, invite some friends and family over, play a little PrizePicks. They sponsor this podcast. It is the number one place in America to win money while you watch sports. And PrizePicks this week, is going to basically give you a free square and a free player. And this is how it works. When you build a lineup of 2 to 6 players, they each come with a stat. With that stat, passing yards, rushing yards, touchdowns, tackles, whatever it might be, you just go more than or you go less than. And here's that free player in that lineup, that free square, if you will. If you think Drake May is going to have more than 1 passing yards, put that in the lineup. There you go. That's it, which means if you play PrizePicks, you just need to make one other correct pick where you can pick the stat, the player. You can adjust the number if you want. And Mike Charity and I are going to give you a lot of numbers, which I'm invested in because I've told you my father is now playing PrizePicks. I don't play with my inheritance, but you should play PrizePicks. So go to PrizePicks now. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Okay, breaking my own rules here. Look, the only way this group gets the MVP award is Drake May receives it and passes it off immediately to Will Campbell, who then never gives it back to him. And they take it to Disneyland because Drake May, after being kept clean in this Super Bowl somehow, sends the offensive line to Disney World where they deserve to be. And that, to me, is a group here that, look, I know they're off the board, but even if they were on the board, Bill, they're not in the top 6, correct, for, like, MVP this game?
I have seen individual linemen are, like, plus 200,000 to win, which I can imagine, like, Anthony Bradford winning MVP.
You're not kidding.
Yeah. Like, what would it take? What would have to happen for Anthony Bradford to be named MVP? Perhaps if every other player is injured during the game and he's the only player left standing, if he kicks an extra point because Jason Myers is injured, maybe, it would take a lot, is what I'm saying.
Well, since I brought him up, a couple things. The names you just mentioned are on that list. Chad Muma is also on this list. Signed from the Colts practice squad to the Patriots roster. Special teams linebacker plus 200,000, which now reminds me of the Kevin Malone quote of anytime you're given those odds, you have to take it in case Giles ever wins an Oscar. He'll be a multimillionaire. Anyway, Thayer Munford, a guy who's been very popular in this podcast because they just keep talking about how much the Patriots play with 6 offensive linemen, is also on there for plus 200,000, so something to think of. Anyway, the reason I bring this up is because whether you want to go with the most basic age-old analysis that the game is one of the trenches, or look and go, this Seattle defense stunts at the 3rd highest rate in the league. Their pressure rate is 34-something%, pending whatever your database you use. Yeah. They're good in short yardage. Holy crap, is this a tough test for the Patriots offensive line. If they do their job, Drake May is kept clean, the Patriots probably win this game. So to me, as far as I understand I'm breaking the rules, but I just look at that group and go, if someone's going to save this game and you don't expect it, they got to be high up on that list.
No question. And it does feel like in a scenario where the Patriots score 27 points in this game, which is not out of the realm of possibility, it either happens because Sam Darnold hands them 3 short fields or because they have the game of their lives blocking. And, I mean, if you block up the Seahawks, you can throw on them. Like they have talented players, no question. But like we've talked about, Josh Jobe, you can get him for PI. You can get him with physicality. You can run away from him. Reek Woolen can fall is susceptible to double moves. Even Devon Witherspoon, who I think is a Gonzalez caliber player. You saw last week when Devontae Adams got on him, he was falling down a couple times for completions. He's given up big plays to Marvin Harrison earlier this year. Like, those dudes are all great players, but you can throw on them if you have time to throw and you have a quarterback who is capable of putting the ball in really tight windows, which we know Drake May is capable of doing. And so I do believe the Patriots offensive line could have a great game. And if they are playing well enough where the Patriots win this game and Drake May does get the protection he needs, I mean, crazier things have happened than voting for them collectively for MVP. So I do think it's likely to matter in the real game, and I do think they could be the MVPs of the actual game, but I have to admit they were not on my board as I was putting together my board here for potential MVP candidates.
All right, you have so far Marcus Jones, DeMarcus Lawrence, 2 very sensible picks. I have Rashid Shaheed and a group of men who will, only touch the award if it's handed to them. The 5th overall pick on our draft, who's coming off?
Oof. This is a tough one because I have to trust this guy gets on the field. And we don't know if that's going to happen.
Oh, I know where you're going. Yes.
It's Travion Henderson.
Yeah.
And I'll go back years ago to a story that my colleague Scott Van Pelt still makes fun of me for. He brought me on his show, and he asked me for a long shot MVP pick, and it was the first Niners-Chiefs Super Bowl, and I picked Matt Breida because I was like, Matt Breida is a home run hitter. He was like plus 20,000 or whatever, some crazy odds. And I think it was Tevin Coleman was hurt, and so I wasn't sure if he was going to play. And it's like, well, if he's the number 2 running back, maybe he gets a handful of carries, maybe one of them goes for a touchdown. Matt Breida, I don't think, played a single offensive snap in that game. And so SVP still, to this day, is like, so you got any Breida caliber picks for me this year, Bill? And I was like, I'm sorry, no, I don't have one. But Travion Henderson, played a grand total of 4 snaps in the AFC Championship game. And if you're a Patriots fan, you already know why that's the case. And if you're a Patriots fan, you already know why I'm still considering him as an MVP pick. Because he might get 10 snaps in this game, and 2 of them might be 50-yard touchdowns. The ability to strike from anywhere, the ability to create splash, memorable, explosive plays at a position that we already know people want to reward, that people love voting for. I mean, if this is a 20-13 Patriots victory and Trevion Henderson gets 6 carries for 95 yards and 2 touchdowns, he could absolutely, to me, win MVP.
Yeah, and I think this hinges on a couple of things. Number one is a question a reader emailed me the other day, and I started to type out an answer, which was my answer earlier this year. Like, oh, well, he's not on kick return because they really value him in offense. They don't want to get hurt. Do they value him in offense? Because, like, there are no more games left after Sunday.
Yeah.
I would put him on kick return if I'm the Patriots for reasons we know why. And the fact that the first time he touched a ball in an NFL game, whether it counted or not, was in the preseason, and he made a house call. So there's a potential path for him there. You mentioned, him being used on offense. They could go to some pony personnel if they wanted to.
No question.
Probably the most overrated personnel grouping in the world, if we're being honest, but at least could give you an opportunity to pick on Drake Thomas as far as a double move or otherwise in space or a wheel route, one of their linebackers who's very, very good against a run. But if you're the Patriots, you've got circled because you don't get to circle many guys in the Seattle defense and go,
for sure,
we're going after him. Seattle is 4th against running backs by DVOA. And that's the harder part about this. But again, this is not as much about broad, statistical themes or facts as it is in isolation, in these specific downs. Where can we go after them? And Henderson's certainly a weapon. So he was on my board. Probably my next pick. But this guy has slightly better odds.
He does.
And interestingly enough, I think fewer paths. Hunter Henry, plus 10,000. And here is the hard part. If Hunter Henry wins MVP, it's because he caught 2 touchdowns, or the only touchdown in the entire game. If Hunter Henry catches 2 touchdowns, that means Drake May has thrown 2 touchdowns. That means Drake May is probably going to win MVP of the Super Bowl. But
we might get a Hunter Henry jet sweep touchdown.
Oh, baby. He'd play quarterback a little bit. Maybe he can throw it. We talked about trick plays in your pod.
Yeah.
I'm going to put that down as well. Look, he would have to catch 2 touchdowns. In this case, Drake May has multiple turnovers, and you go, those were so damning that Hunter Henry saved them in the 17-14 game that he deserves to be MVP. And you could tell me, as I just told the folks, well, Trevion Henderson is a bad pick because he's 4th by DVOA, but there's still ways to use him against that Seattle defense. It's good against running backs. Seattle, again, 4th at defending tight ends by DVOA. But their safeties gave up 8 touchdowns this year to tight ends. So this is, again, in an isolation, throw it up, go get it, big fella. And this is someone Drake may trust because he's had a red zone target in 7 of their last 8 games, including against similar style defenses in Baltimore and Miami, which is where you're seeing similar structures from Mike McDonald in the Seahawks. Granted, very, very different defenses. One of these touchdowns probably has to be a game winner. Well, Hunter Henry, there are worse wagers to make, worse guesses to make, I think, Bill.
Yeah, I totally reasonable. And you look back to last game for the Seahawks in the NFC Championship game, Rams leaned heavy into 12 and 13 personnel and had a ton of success doing so. Doesn't mean you change your entire game plan to try and emulate the Rams. It's different personnel, different team, different groupings. Rams use 13 more than anybody else in the league. But I wonder if the Patriots are more open to 12 personnel because of the success the Rams had. And the Seahawks mentioned this as well. They play nickel more than anybody else in football. They play base defense less often than anybody else in the league. They want to be a smaller defense. Really doesn't matter what you throw at them. If you play 12, they're still coming back with nickel because they have Evan Worry, who they see basically as like a linebacker when teams do play with 2 tight ends, and who as a safety when they play with 11 personnel. So I do think the tight ends have a meaningful role here. Like you said, though, it's just a very narrow window to hit because you have to have, to me, 2 touchdowns. Like, I think even if he gets the game winner, that's not enough. Like, he has to go 6 for 60 with 2 scores, and he has to be the only guy in the game with 2 touchdowns, and Drake May has to really struggle, and the Patriots have to win. So, like, that's a very, you're hitting like a really narrow parlay. But when you're getting to these odds, like, you're going to have to hit a really narrow parlay to win.
This is putting 100 on 27 black, I think. Is that how that goes? So it doesn't play a whole lot of roulette. Okay,
Yes.
very good. You know what? I said we would do 3 picks apiece. We're already there. I got a
Yeah.
couple more on my board. I don't know about you.
I got one more that I feel good about.
Okay, all right.
Jason Myers. Maybe not the player Patriots fans are wanting to hear. And I guess you make the case for Borregales as well. Like, it could be a kicker. But if we're talking about a low-scoring game, we're talking about a game played in very good conditions, I would assume, in Santa Clara. We know old people are just wildly impressed with how good NFL kickers are at hitting long field goals. If Jason Myers goes like 5 for 5 in this game, hits a couple 55 plus yarders, and maybe hits a game winner to win the Super Bowl for the Seahawks in like a 15-14 game, Jason Myers could be the MVP.
Solid pick. All of
You,
these
you,
kind of
you don't
revolve
sound
around.
thrilled about that one.
Well,
I feel like I let you down.
no. It's just because you know as well as I do. Like, the quarterback conversation, just like it dominates the Heisman, is like kind of the Super Bowl MVP.
For sure.
But it hit me that like we're also trying to speak into existence this heinous Super Bowl. Like, there's no choice but to give it to someone else because Sam Darnold and Drake May played so poorly, which again is the premise of the exercise. But
yeah, would that not be the perfect way to end this season, where all the things that have happened this year, that if I had told you the Chiefs were going to miss the playoffs, the Lions were going to miss the playoffs, the Patriots were going to be in the Super Bowl, Sam Darnold was going to be in the Super Bowl, like that, I would have been kicked off TV if I had said those things before the season. And yet that is exactly what happened. That would be the perfect end to a season where you had to stretch your beliefs, and every rule you thought about what actually mattered did not matter when it came to football.
will you say that on TV this week?
I don't think they're going to put me on TV, knowing that I might say something like that on TV this week. So I feel like if there was ever a year for a really weird winner, and we've had some weird winners in the past. Like, remember Malcolm Smith won MVP for the Seahawks in the Super Bowl. Like crazy things happen.
Yeah. All right, I have 2 left,
Okay.
and one I think I can go quickly on, but it allows us to highlight a matchup we haven't really talked about here. I did last week with Dan Pizzuta. Milton Williams, who's plus
For sure.
22,500. This is he just picks up Anthony Bradford and puts him on his head and then spins him like a top and then goes to sack Sam Darnold and just does this over and over again. And Milton Williams, for whatever reason, in the playoffs just becomes the Hulk. 6 pressures against Denver. We know what he did last year against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl and the Commanders before that. The best player in the field, period. End of story. There's a path here for him to do that again. Jake Sundell and Gray Zabel might be young. They're not quite as bad as Anthony Bradford has been, but he's my pick. And the other one was Nick Emanwari, who's plus 10,000. And this is, again, you talk about the nickel usage for Seattle. Like, he's on the field the entire time. This rookie safety, who is maybe the best athlete in the whole league. 2.5 sacks this year, a pick, 11 pass breakups. This would be Drake May looking at Stephon Diggs, knowing Seattle's in-man coverage, because they'll do this with their safeties, specifically Emanwari, and going, I got this. Quick out, and he just breaks, and it goes back the other way for a pick 6, and away you go. He's on the field the whole time. He can do anything, and in this case, does something that kind of cracks the game open.
Yeah, I mean, just a freak of a player, and someone who, when I'm writing about the game, I keep coming back to, like, man, so much stuff for Seattle works because of him. Like, rookies are not supposed to be that, like, sort of skeleton key, but he really is for what they want to do on defense. He's not Derwin James. He's not Kyle Hamilton, great safeties who have played in McDonald defense or Jesse Minter defense. He's that kind of, like, rule breaker that changes what you can do on defense. And I think, sometimes those guys go nuclear on a big stage and make their name, and with big plays. That can entirely happen here.
Yeah. All right, we'll get you out on this. Do you have a real MVP pick just yet? Mid research, early in the week. No one's going to hold you to this, especially if you do want to say Jason Myers on TV and change your mind as a little Easter egg for the good listeners.
I don't have a good pick yet. I think I would say JSN, because I do think, like, if the Seahawks win, it's hard for me to imagine that happening without JSN going for like 130, 140, 150. And could totally see that happening. Could see him being comfortably the highest receiver in the game. And I know people want to credit Sam Darnold, and he played really well last week. You should credit Sam Darnold. But I do feel like there's that built-in thing of, like, people know that Sam Darnold's Sam Darnold. And so I think JSN's more likely to win MVP than maybe he would be with Matthew Stafford as his quarterback or Drake May as his quarterback. So I think I would say JSN.
It's just amazing to me, Bill, that the guy gets to the Super Bowl, and we're still doing we sure about Sam Darnold, and we're right. Like, this doesn't happen very often, but there will be.
It's better.
He'll win the game, yeah, for sure, and throw 4 touchdowns. And the question will be like, do you still trust him? It's like, he's got a ring, and now maybe, but he won't win the Super Bowl MVP because of that exact question. It stinks that it's still not off of him, left behind by all the ghosts.
The goalpost is moving in both ways. It's not just like, to me, he's still a replacement level quarterback that might win the Super Bowl. Like, we have seen, he deserves to be treated as someone who's better than the guy we expected heading into last year in Minneapolis. Like, he to me is a league average quarterback with an incredibly high variance that we saw this year. I mean, he was literally the best quarterback in football for 2 months and like one of the 3 worst quarterbacks in football for a month and a half. Like, he has all that in him. I think his like median performance, maybe before last year, I would have been like, well, he's median like the 30th best quarterback in football. Now I think he's like the 12th or 14th best quarterback in football. And so that to me feels like that it's moved. The ceiling's moved, the floor is moved. But I just think the variance is so incredibly high for him in a single game.
And this is why, if anyone takes anything from this little draft podcast, sprinkle a little on Chad Muma for a pick 6 of Sam Darnold, just in case at the very bottom, plus 200,000.
The Moo Men are making money.
The Moo Men. We'll find a little name for the Chad Muma hive out there. Bill, this was a treat. Thank you for coming on the pod. Obviously, everyone find him at ESPN. Subscribe to our channel here at _Andrew Callahan, as well as Patriots Press Pass, where you can find all this and more throughout Super Bowl week, live from Radio Row. You'll be here tomorrow, I think. I will. Looking forward to seeing you, and we'll hang out soon. All right.
Looking forward to it.